would help for the book talk. Is that a lot better? I see several people saying yes. So, Bruce, do you mind using a microphone?
Well, I got a pretty loud voice. I think I'll hear it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
What? Thanks for moving, guys.
When I was a kid, one of the ways I fell in love with hiking, the woods, camping, that sort of thing, was reading books like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. I think a lot of kids still get hooked on the outdoors by reading stuff like that. And if you got a kid or a grandkid, niece or nephew who likes that kind of stuff, another good series is the Ranger's Apprentice. I would say it's kind of geared for kids 10 to 16, but actually at the library I work with, a lot of adults are reading it as well. The first book in the series is The Ruins of Gorlin. And it's set in a land similar to England, and an orphan was living in a castle orphanage. She's getting ready to enter an apprenticeship with all his friends. They're all kind of jockeying to see what apprenticeship they'll get. And Will becomes a ranger's apprentice. And it's a real exciting story. A lot of kids are going to love it. They're going to get hooked. And when they get hooked, they're going to have tons and tons of books to read. It's a long, exciting series. Kids burn right through it. I strongly recommend the series, The Ranger's Apprentice. And that's it for me. Who's up next? Sarah, can I ask you to do it? Dying to hear your voice.
I've never given a book talk before, but I will do my absolute best. I have read Thirst, 2,600 Miles to Home. And I am not a thru hiker. I have no intention of being a thru hiker. This just happened to come up on my Amazon wish list, a suggestion for me. I have a piece of paper because it's the Kindle version instead of the actual book. But this woman, Heather Anderson, sets out on an attempt to break the record for the fastest known time of the PCT, which is the Pacific Crest Trail. That means hiking about 40 to 50 miles a day, typically. And she's doing this because she feels that she's lost touch with what most consider to be a normal life. She doesn't have children, her marriage has failed, she couldn't hold down a 9-to-5 job, she just didn't feel like she was in the right place in the world. So she had thru hiked before, found a lot of peace in that, and so I will not give away the ending, whether she does break the record or not. But she finds herself along the way and realizes that she shouldn't be trying to conform to the expectations of others. She finds out that she's much stronger than she ever thought she was. She goes from having these awful blisters to meeting mountain lions in the middle of the night and roaring back at them, and just really discovering that she's much stronger, like I said, than she ever thought she was, and now she considers herself an athlete and just a person that's right with herself in the world. So we'll have to read it to check it out, see if she beats the record.
Who's the author?
Heather Anderson. And her trail name is Inish, in honor of her grandmother. So, yeah, highly recommend. Thirst.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, at the risk of juggling too much stuff, I'm going to try to have my notes and my books and the microphone, okay? So, the first book I want to talk about is this book, The Genius of Place by Justin Martin. How many of you are familiar with Frederick Law Olmsted? Have you ever heard of him? Most people have heard of him. Okay, this book was written by Justin Martin, and this year happens to be the 200th anniversary of Frederick Law Olmsted's birth. Olmsted, do you know what he did for his career. Can anybody tell me what he did for his career?
Landscape architect.
He was a landscape architect. And in the 1800s, when he started doing that, this did not exist as a profession. The idea of decorating your yard or planting trees or bushes to improve the landscape, that was a totally brand new idea. People had not heard of that. It turns out, as I read this book, Frederick Law Olmsted kept putting himself in places where he happened to be in a place at the right time to develop a new landscape for many, many different areas. He was not only a landscaper, he was an author, a sailor, a farmer, a lover of nature, an adventurer, an abolitionist, and an artist with the landscape. He founded landscape architecture, and if you read this book, you can see the dozens of iconic landscapes that he created throughout the entire country. When he was learning to do landscape, he'd travel to Europe to learn about what was done there, and then he'd come back here. But I can't believe the places that he has affected all around here. There are 3 parks in Rochester: Genesee Valley, Highland Park, and Seneca Park. He developed a system of parks for Rochester, New York. But you'll have to check out the Genius of Place by Justin Martin to find all the place where he put his hand in the landscape. It's very interesting. And then I happen to be a lucky person who is having 2 grandbabies in the next coming year. So I have children on the mind, and so I have children's books to share with you. I don't know if any of you have children in your life or are a grandparent. Anybody have people that they need to buy for? Okay, well, these might be some Christmas ideas, okay? One is, this is a little board book for the youngest nature lovers, okay? It is called Penguin and Pinecone, and it is by Selena Yoon. There's a whole series that is offered by Selena Yoon. And Penguin happens to make good friends with this pinecone, and he has no idea what it is or what it means or anything. And he's in love with his new little friend. He knits a sweater for his friend, and they just have a great relationship going until Penguin's grandfather tells him that his friend is not from anywhere around here, that his friend really is supposed to live far, far away. So he kind of gives a challenge to Penguin, and you'll have to read the book to see how this charming story develops and what happens to Penguin's and Pinecone's friendship. It's really, really sweet. Reinhard?
What age group would you say that book is suited for?
Well, I think board books are for, in general, 2 and under. That's what I would say. The story, it's a picture book. The reading is simple, but the board books are really great for those who tear pages. But this is the story that really starts the youngest people out to appreciate nature and find and think of a great relationship with nature. So you have to see what happens. It's like about 24 pages in here, and you can't believe the time and the relationship that develops, but it's very charming. And so are all her other books. This is Penguin and Pinecone by Selena Yoon. And my next book, I know I got kind of carried away with this, but is a picture book for a little bit older readers. It's a nonfiction book. And this book is The Bee Man by Lori Krebs and Valeria Sis, okay? And they are, so how many of you know somebody who is afraid of bees? Do you know the people who, when bees come out, they're like swatting them, trying get away from them? Well, this is a great book, especially for a young person who has that attitude. They're afraid of bees and don't know how to deal with them. But this book is written from the point of view of a little boy, and he knows the bee man. And I'm not going to tell you who the bee man is. You're going to have to read the book to find out who the bee man is. But the story develops and really educates a young person about what the bee's job is in a fun way. And it also has to do with his relationship with the bee man. I'd like to read you a little poem that's just kind of at the beginning. This is not, the story is not a poem. But this is just in the beginning where it starts. It says, there wouldn't be sunflowers, wouldn't be peas, wouldn't be apples on apple trees if it weren't for fuzzy old bees dusting pollen from off of their knees. That's by Eileen Fisher. And anyway, there's also a surprise at the end of this book for you to find a way to use the product of the bees. So check out the book, The Bee Man by Lori Krebs and Valeria Sis. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Hey, Peg, you got a book for us? Thank you.
How many people are tailors? A few. Okay. What
Can you
I
use the microphone, please?
can you hear you? Think you can hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, no? Yes. It's on?
It's on.
Okay. Do I got it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Right a minute. What I brought along, by class, is a set of 4 maps from of the Erie Canal system. Also, the guidebook for the Erie Canal system. And I brought a little pile of papers that any of you who would like are welcome to take. These, I'll pass these around. Take those, and I got another set here. The guidebook is $20. However, you can go online, and if you would like to take one of these, it will tell you how to download the guidebook, so you can get it for free. And I believe the maps also. So this winter, when you don't have anything else to do, get online, download the maps, download the book, the guidebook, and be ready to paddle in the spring. It's really an excellent book. It goes through the entire Erie Canal system, starting in Buffalo all the way down to the Hudson River. And there's really a movement now to try to use the Erie Canal more for just for recreation. Got our kayaks and our canoes out there, camp. They're putting together some campsites. It's been a problem over the years. If you were paddling and you had to stop to go to the bathroom, there were no bathrooms along the canal. There were no place that you could get out of your boat. They're really making major efforts to put launches on the canal, to put campsites, places where people can stay. So this book gives you all that information. And then if you're a paddler, it's well worth downloading, or download the pieces that you want of it. Just maybe the Rochester information or the Buffalo information. So I'll put these over here. If anybody would like one, just help yourself. It's got the information how to get those. Okay? Any questions?
Hey, thank you so much. Right here. I think you got one of my favorite books of all time.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to use it. You okay with me not using this? I've never been accused of having a soft voice, so if it's a problem, somebody can't hear, I'll I don't have a hard copy of my book. I do most of my book reading on Kindle these days, so I'm not prepared with a hard copy. But how many of you have heard, I'm sure all of you have heard, of the Lewis and Clark expedition? Right? We all learned about that in grade school. Well, the book I'm going to talk about is called Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. And it's basically a historical accounting of the opening of the Northwest, okay, and about Lewis and Clark's expedition from 1803 to 1806. And not only does the book deal with the events of the actual expedition itself, but it also talks about the events both immediately before the expedition and afterwards. And Ambrose, have any of you heard of Stephen Ambrose, the author? He's quite well known, right? He really does his research, okay? And that's what I like. Unfortunately, there were journals left by the two co-leaders of the Lewis and Clark expedition, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. They kept fairly detailed journals. And Ambrose and his wife actually traversed the entire 8,000-mile route of the Lewis and Clark expedition in preparation for writing his book. So the guy really.
That book twice, best account ever.
It's very good. Okay, there's an endorsement. Okay, you gotta read the book now. But
Stephen Ambrose is a super author. Start reading that you'll not put it down.
Yeah, he's very good. And Thomas Jefferson, our third president, he had a vision of opening up the Northwest. Of course, he was the mastermind behind the Louisiana Purchase, which basically doubled the area of the United States. But he knew that it was largely unexplored territory. So some folks say that the best thing that Jefferson ever did was the Louisiana Purchase, and the second best thing he ever did was initiating the steps needed to explore the Northwest. And he outlined 4 objectives for the expedition. One was to explore the Missouri River and find an open water route to the Pacific. Of course, we all know now that that doesn't exist, okay? There's something called the Rocky Mountains that gets in the way. But anyway, that was his primary objective. He also wanted to have the expedition make careful observations, latitude, longitude, so that upon their return, an accurate map could be made. He also wanted to learn the names of the Native American tribes, their customs and their culture, and to avoid at all costs hostile confrontation with the Native American tribes that he knew the expedition would encounter along the way. And also, he wanted to have the expedition leaders record the flora and fauna. Okay, so Lewis was chosen by Jefferson very early on to lead the expedition because actually Lewis was known to Jefferson. He grew up in Virginia. He spent some of his early years in the same area as Jefferson did. And Jefferson knew that Lewis was an expert frontiersman, okay? But Lewis was not an educated person. So Jefferson took the initiative, after they agreed, okay, Meriwether Lewis is gonna lead the expedition. Jefferson made sure that Lewis was instructed, in fields of navigation, botany, medicine, and various other disciplines. And actually, Jefferson himself tutored Lewis for some time prior to Lewis embarking on the expedition. And Lewis selected as a co-leader William Clark, who he knew and was also an expert frontiersman. There were 30 frontiersmen on the expedition. Again, 8,000 miles over 3 years. They lost 1 person, okay, to appendicitis. Okay, so pretty remarkable. And believe me, they had to endure tremendous hardships along the way. Just think about it, okay? They did pack some provisions, but in many respects, they had to live off the land. So it was quite a remarkable feat. And then, as I mentioned, Ambrose's book does not end with the expedition itself. It discusses what happened primarily to the principal character, Meriwether Lewis, And I'm not going to tell you about that. You got to read the book to find out, okay? But Undaunted Courage, it's not a dry history book. If you're shy away from history books because, you know, they can be a little dry, this is not the case. I think Ambrose does a masterful job of making you feel like you're part of the expedition and you kind of are right there with the crew, you know, and you experience intimately the hardships, you know, the trials, the tribulations, and the successes that folks experience on the expedition. So if you wanna experience that for yourselves, pick up a copy of Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose.
Thanks a lot, Rainer. Excuse me, sir. Want to give that book a shout out? Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.
So I read Kevin Flynn's book here after being back here a couple times. Great book. Talks about his learning to climb Everest and some of the other peaks and stuff. I'm sure we'll hear more about that in a little bit. Great book. I think you'll have some tonight.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Dave, you got a book for us?
Yes, I do, Bruce. Thanks.
Thanks.
So I'm going to mention a book that has been around for a number of years, and probably most of you have used it, but I thought it'd just be worthwhile bringing it up again. It's called Secret Places, Scenic Treasures of Western New York and Southern Ontario. So this was published in 1994, and it has 25 locations from roughly the Rochester area, or South Bay area, all the way to the western end of New York State and up into St. Catharines. These 25 locations are just really interesting places to take a hike and see some interesting scenery. I'm not going to go into describing each of them. You can read them in the book. Now, you'd say, okay, this is a book that was put out a long time ago. It was published by, or authored by Bruce Kirshner. In fact, Bruce Kirshner is no longer with us. So how do you get it? You can actually get it through the library. You can still get it on Amazon.com. But what can't you get on Amazon.com? But also, two people. The two people are Jennifer Hillman and William McKeever, have worked with the literary estate of Bruce Kirshner to reissue this as a new book. It's an e-book that covers 25 places, and it's been updated in this area. So it's really a book to just pick up and go with and enjoy and see some of the just absolutely gorgeous or unique places in Western New York. They're all day trips. They're all easy to get to. My suggestion is look up this book or look it up online. It's on an ebook for about $13 online. And just head out in your car and see some really unique places in this beautiful part of the country that we all live in.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Anybody else got a book they'd like to share? All right, I'm going to share one more. It's another series. It's the Joe Pickett series by C.J. Fox. It's about a Wyoming game warden. And what I really like about this series is this, it's kind of an action-adventure mystery series. What I really like about it is this game warden, Joe Pickett, finds himself in all sorts of social conundrums. And what I mean by that is he's a game warden working with hunters in Wyoming, and he's always having to deal with, Wyoming residents who are not really thrilled with either state or federal government telling them what to do. He's there to protect animals. Some of the hunters are kind of overly gung-ho hunters. But he's also got to deal with environmentalists, and although it's got some goofy action in it, a lot of the same sort of things you see, same sort of struggles you might see in the Adirondacks between people who live there, people who go there to recreate and stuff like that. It's a real exciting series, a lot of high drama, a lot of neat social issues. Some of the action's a little bit goofy, but it's a great series. The first one in the series is Open House, or no, Open Season. But the series is the Joe Pickett series, and it's by C.J. Fox. And Jill, can I steal you for another couple books? Only if you want.
I really specialize in children's books, so I don't know if that still interests a few more people, but this one is another nonfiction book. It's The Reason for a Flower, and it explains pollination, and it's beautifully illustrated and written. I mean, it's a great way to explain to kids how pollination works. This flower, this one has become a plum. So you see it in all the stages. The illustrations are great. It's a picture book for kids explaining how all the parts of a plant and how they produce pollen and create seeds. And so I didn't plan too much for them. And this is a great story. It is a fiction story based on Life for Owls, The Littlest Owl by Carolyn Pitcher and Tina McNaughton. This is the fourth owl that hatched to Mama Owl, and its siblings all learn to fly, and the littlest owl just can't do that. And things get a little hairy when a big storm is coming, and little owl has tried every day to fly, and he just cannot fly. So if you're interested to see what happens when the storm comes, check out The Littlest Owl by Carolyn Pitcher and Tina McNaughton. It's a charming story. Good. All right, does anybody else have a story to share? No? Well, Bruce?
I'll do one more. Thanks. And I'll close out with a kid's book that also works real well for adults. It's The Wolves and the Moose of Isle Royale. It's part of a Science in the Field series. And it basically takes you on a tour of that park. There's wonderful pictures, a lot of different information about the wolves and the moose and their relationship with each other. It's just a wonderful book that it's kind of geared for kids, but any adult reading it is going to learn pretty much everything they're going to want to know about the wolves and the moose of Isle Royale. And it's by Nancy Castaldo. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you all sharing books with us. Thanks a lot.